Hi, my name is Peter Hugerzeel. I am an activist and a consultant from Seekonk, Massachusetts. I'm glad to be here with Jim Crocker, a candidate for the Cape and Islands Senate. How you doing, Jim?
Very good, Peter. Thank you.
Well, just to really get to it, why are you running for the Cape and Islands Senate seat?
Well, you want to run for the seat because you know we can do better when we're together. And together, I mean, you really have to think about what it takes to make something happen on Beacon Hill. My parents taught me clearly it was honorable to serve in the public eye, and that you'll always be tested to earn the vote of the public, and you'll always be tested to earn your constituents' support. But there's really a way to do business, and if you take the high road, if you really focus on what it is that is necessary for your community, the rewards are endless for someone like myself. I've really found it to be very rewarding and very fulfilling, and I'm just grateful to have the opportunity.
So tell us a little bit about your background and what do you think has prepared you to run and, if elected, be an effective state senator?
Well, certainly, I have 28 years of elected service, and so I'm very honored to have been supported by my constituent base in the town of Barnstable for those services. I have 12 years in the town council and 17 years in fire and water. And all aspects of those businesses, I should say, of those government agencies, have different nuances that really teach you quite a bit about what it is to run and bring products and services back to your constituent base. I think it's so important that we really need to focus on the towns as the entity that delivers services to the constituents. The state has to take the lid and the handcuffs off so that the towns can deliver the services. And I'm very grateful that all of that work has also brought me a number of committee works. I've served on library committees, I've served on certainly negotiating committees for union wages. I've made presentations for bond rating. I've had some great runs with putting together a solar array negotiation, the first one in the Cape and Islands District. We also have worked on sewer lines and sewer issues and sewer expansion. And I've had all kinds of opportunities through the size and scale of Barnstable as a base of my service.
Well, besides, you have a long career in government and working in local government. Well, what about in business and in the private sector, what you've been able to do?
Well, again, I've been very fortunate. I've had my business in Osterville for, I think it's my 32nd year. It is Weano Realty. I have certainly seen 2 or 3 up and down cycles, and that is all part of my business, and that's part of reality. It's part of what Cape Codders face every 8 years, I can say. I'm fortunate enough to have been able to branch off into some development issues. I built some nice condominium projects that I'm quite proud of. I built the Marriott Courtyard next to the Cape Cod Mall. I built a day surgery center. Matter of fact, it was the last licensed day surgery center that the state allowed right here in Mashpee. And I've had a great construction business as well with residential. And so I feel very fortunate that I've had the luxury of living and working very close to home and making a fine living for myself and my family.
So you have the experience, you're working real hard, you get elected, you go up to Beacon Hill. What's the first thing you do?
First thing, bill number one. Bill number one has to be a cost-saving measure. I've had it. You know, I look back at the last 6 years of service in this particular seat, and I can't find a single bill that was designed to save the taxpayer money. We have to talk about reining in the pocketbook. I don't care as much about how the money is spent if it is budgeted. I'll fight for the budget, I'll fight for the budget line items, but once it's budgeted, I agree that we should spend the money as it was mandated by the vote. But we can't suggest that we have money to spare. We can't keep raiding the rainy day funds. We can't keep draining and risking our bond rating, which is the biggest financial stability item we have in the Commonwealth. So I'm really about fiscal management. I'm really about doing something fair and right. And I promise every year my very first bill will have some kind of savings involved.
Now, if you look at the Cape and Islands, and if you look at the issues that the Cape and Islands face, like every region in the state, what would you look at as an issue that is most important to the Cape that you think you would be able to contribute with legislation, or maybe not legislation, maybe just working with cities and towns and the county government to be able to help solve some problems on the Cape? Anything in particular?
Well, I like to call it the coastal economy. The coastal economy needs to be really understood and strengthened. We're not trying to invite new businesses to Cape Cod, we're trying to strengthen the businesses we have. And in order to do so, you have to understand how they're intertwined. I mean, it's the waterfront that makes the cash register ring for our shops, motels, and our restaurants. It's the expensive real estate that makes jobs in construction and property management. It's really just a combination of all these, the shoreline itself, between the marina bases, shellfishing. There's a number of jobs, and they're all tied to the coastal economy. The coastal economy has to be healthy for Cape Cod to survive and for us to provide a livelihood for our families.
Now, once you do that, now where's the state coming into this role? You're looking at the coastal economies, the things that need to be solved, the things you need to be do. Where's the state coming to play, and where's your role in getting into that?
Well, I believe in this particular instance, it's about getting the state to back off from over-regulation. In my opinion, it's become so difficult to do any work on the coastline that the state is the problem for cities and towns to deliver services and protect the assets of those towns that were made by taxpayer money. So we need to really look at our regulations. We need to talk about how we can get through DEP, how we get to do joint ventures with the state contributing on different bridges, road runoffs, and certainly any coastal erosion issue that needs to be readdressed to shore up for that coastal economy.
All right, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. One of the major issues or problems on the Cape that rears its head every year around this time has been over the years the problem with homelessness, which brings in a whole other myriad of issues. Speak to us and let us know what you've been doing in Barnstable and what you could do as a state senator to really work on that problem.
Well, I feel very fortunate. Jen Cullum, who is a very active counselor in the town of Barnstable, asked me to join her and put together a homeless committee in Barnstable to address the issue that has seemingly gotten terribly out of hand. And most of the discussion starts with, well, gee, we have all the social services. Maybe we need to spread them out. Maybe we need to move them out. I don't believe that for a minute. What I believe is all those social services have to identify the people in need, and we have to bring dignity to them to get them out of the woods. So we really need to focus on how to ensure that everyone has been assigned a service and can get the best possible care to re-enter society and to really make a difference here. And if we do that, and if we take care of our brother in that regard, if we identify places that are appropriate for treatment services and or job counseling, we will have our handle on this homeless issue. And that's something we need to work on, and something we have been working on in Barnstable. We meet weekly on this, we discuss it. We're hiring an outside coordinator to be the liaison between the police and the multitude of social services. We believe that eventually we will have so much data that the social services will be able to chase grants out of it, and we'll really lick this problem.
Well, now some people say, okay, that's all well and good, but when we move forward, what about housing on the Cape? How can affordable housing be brought more to areas in the Cape? Because a lot of people say, all right, you have the homeless issue, but affordable housing has to be is a major issue to that. How would you go about trying to help solve that?
Right in my wheelhouse. I'm in construction. I understand the issue and the cost of permits. I understand the cost of construction in Massachusetts. And first, you cannot start a construction plan without good, solid planning for waste and for subsurface septic systems. We need to identify good science and build the right size septic systems. And with the right size septic systems, we can put the right amount of units in control, and we can have safe, sound development opportunities. First, we need to address workhouse housing, and then we need to address affordable housing. So we need to provide a base. I believe there is a great number of people who have to commute off the Cape to have a lifestyle. And when you do that, you drag the other spouse out, and that becomes a problem for different services that we need filled with employees. So we really need to focus on workforce housing, and then we need to focus more on the affordable criteria of housing.
On the Cape, the season's coming in. I know I've been talking a lot about the Cape, but I think the islands come into this also. What about the local economy? How would you assess the local economy on the Cape and the islands, particularly during the season? And what are some of the things that can be done to, not inspire, but help economic growth in the Cape and the islands?
Well, I've taken several trips to both Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, and the coastal economy theory isn't unique to Cape Cod. It is within the district of the Cape and Islands Senate. And they are having erosion. They are having, Nantucket just voted $41 million to spend on a septic system, and they're going to overbuild it because DEP hasn't got good science. So everybody's facing the same situations, whether you're in an isolated island situation or a peninsula like we see the rest of us. I think the economy as a whole, though, is in a much better place than it has been. You got to remember, we came out of a devastating period in 08, 09, and I believe that we're on the slow mend, but this is the new high. This is as good as it might get, so we need to prepare to work with this type of economy and this type of cash flow.
When we look at economies, we look at affordability on the Cape, in the islands, and in the district. What are some of the ideas that you would have to make this region more affordable to live and to be able to work?
Well, certainly it's going to be about density. You can't get affordable construction without density, and you can't get density without good sewers. So this is a constant theme you're going to hear me speak of, but it's so true. The cost of real estate, the land itself, is so expensive that it seems to be very difficult to have any affordable housing at this time. And that's why we've had so few new projects come forward on the Cape and Islands.
Right. Now, when the state comes into some of the economic programs that the state's trying to push, all different kinds of programs, what about state government as an efficiency in terms of when it comes to different programs, economic development, and things of that sort? How would you assess that, and what would you do to try to change that?
Well, this candidacy is one great example. I mean, we started, the biggest thing was the opiate issue. They pushed through something. They've had a few ballot choices and challenges, and they push through the ones they choose. And so they're very reactive, but they never go back and revisit poor legislation. And the legislation that's on could be the very thing that's hindering our economic growth. I see it in a number of ways that we need to revisit legislation. And this is a way that perhaps instead of going up there and pounding the desk saying, I want more for Cape Cod, I can make all the senators look like heroes by improving the legislation without anybody giving anything out of their pocket to eventually find a windfall. And there are ways, there are issues. One of the number one things is DPW setting aside Chapter 90 funds. We have to go through a Chapter 90 rehaul where we get approved for the money, it goes out to Lakeville, and then it sits there for a year. Meanwhile, we have to borrow money, we go through this. We just should be handing it out on the cherry sheet. What's wrong with giving the cities and towns the cherry sheet money?
Well, our time is almost up, and the last thing I always like to have people do, we have a primary election on September 8th.
Yes.
We got about 30 seconds. Give your pitch why Jim Crocker.
Well, I really believe that I have the skill set that's necessary to make differences and make a change up in Beacon Hill. I think I know how to put together deals. I know how to work with the people that I'm going to face up there. I also know how to put a group of constituents together that will help me keep in mind the major focus that we need continually to make the state more effective so that we have our strong towns.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Peter.
This is Jim Crocker, and I'm Peter Hugazale, and thank you for watching.